Welcome to the Soul's Kitchen podcast. This is episode 8, and I am so honored and happy to welcome Layah Jane of Heart Space Productions, who is an award-winning singer, folk soul singer-songwriter, and a certified teacher of 5 Rhythms movement. So I just want to quote something from your bio, Layah, if that's okay, because it really moved me when I read it. It sort of said, you said, music and dance, and I quote, claimed me and early on. And then I was reading on in your bio, and you are a daughter of a poet and a creative writing mom and a musician psychotherapist dad. So amazing. And then you later on in your bio said you were steeped in it. I love those words that you use. So tell me, that's, I guess, how your story started. I don't know about, you're living your soul's desire. So
Yeah,
can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, sure. Thanks so much for the invitation. So yeah, it's true. I grew up in a household with lots of music and creativity.
Mm,
And my parents, I would say, really just opened up a space for my sister and I to discover what kind of creativity and art making
mm,
called to each of us, and we explored and experimented as kids, and they supported us to do that. And really, from a very young age, dance really just felt like home for me. And so I attended contemporary dance classes and ballet classes from the time I was quite small.
mm-hmm.
And and my favorite parts of those classes were always the end, when we were invited to dance how we wanted to dance and make up
Ah,
choreography.
okay.
And yeah, that was always my favorite. And then when I was 18, my stepmom brought me to my first 5 Rhythms class. It was like 2 hours where I get to
Ah,
just move for how it feels. It's like, this is amazing.
whoa.
Definitely
Okay.
at home here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when did the singing and songwriting come into it? Because it's like you're doing both, right?
For a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and music has woven through my life in different ways. And I was immersed in the dance world as a child and into my early teens. And then
Mm,
an injury kind of took me off the dance floor for a while. This was before I
mm,
discovered 5 Rhythms. So I was in a setting where you needed a certain level of
mm.
fitness and mobility. And I was having Achilles tendonitis at that time. And so I had to pause my dance training, which was such a heartbreak at the time. It was really one of the kind of first big losses of my life.
Mhm.
And at that time, I started to pour myself into music. And I was already playing piano, and my dad,
Okay.
was writing songs from when I was small. So that was sort of in the realm of like a possibility of a thing someone could do. And so I started
Yeah.
to write my own music when I was, a young teen, and that became so cathartic and therapeutic and identity shaping, in lots of ways.
Yeah.
And I dedicated myself to music for a good like 20 years from that time, sort of from my early teens until my late 20s. And movement was really more background.
Okay.
Discovered 5 Rhythms in my late teens, but it didn't at that time feel like a calling in a like
Mm.
vocation way. I was really pretty dedicated to my life in the music industry and making records and touring. And
Wow.
yeah, and then it was another health crisis that sort of paused me in my tracks, as health crises do sometimes, and
Mhm.
ask us to reassess and look around in our lives and what's working and what's not working as well. And it was at that time in my late 20s, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And
Mm.
I had known for some time that the pace of the music industry and some of what it demands was not working very well for me. I'm someone who, this was before I had kids, and like I always envisioned myself with a garden and with a home and
Mm.
building local community. And as a touring musician, that's not really possible to do.
Right.
Not in this climate of the arts industry. It's like you have to work your butt off and be on the road a lot.
Right.
So all of these kind of reflections and came to a head when I had this health crisis, and
Mm.
like this is the moment where I need to start asking myself the bigger questions around what do I want the next 10 to 15 to 20 years of my life to be like? What do I want to be devoting myself to? And it was through the process of dancing 5 rhythms, which I had been doing all along,
Okay.
but really dedicating myself to that inquiry and to my own healing practice,
Mm.
that I heard that call really loud and strong. It's like, this is it. This is no longer just a personal practice. This is the next step. This is what I want to dedicate
Wow.
my life to. So that's when I began to transition out of more public facing music life and into more deeper and more advanced 5 rhythm study and the teacher training path. And that's definitely more forefront for me now. I'll
Right.
always make music, but
Right.
I don't do it publicly anymore.
Right. Okay. So I just want to go back just to something you said, because again, these conversations, I want to talk to people who are living their soul's desires. And I mean, for you, obviously, it seems so very natural, but and like, even just to hear the calling, um, I think other people hear callings, but they might not necessarily, answer it or know that it's possible to go down that route. Do you know what I mean? Like, we live in such a 3D world where you follow the what's the word I'm looking for? Not the program, I guess. Follow the program. You go to work and then you have hobbies on the side. So I guess I'm talking to people, and it's for me. I'm in that world. I do a 9 to 5 job, and then this is something that I wanted to do to follow my, you know, a little inner voice said you need to do this. So how do you? And again, you were steeped in it. Again, I love that phrase. But still, I think it's a lot of courage in this world to follow those callings. Like, what, do you think that it took courage, or you just, that was it? You had to do it.
It's a really wonderful question, and want
Okay.
to pause and just sit and reflect.
Okay.
What at the time when I go back to the time of being, um, most of us go through these times in our lives where we have sudden changes of course,
Hmm.
and where there's grief and loss involved, and where there's a letting go, whether
Mm,
it's of a career or whether it's a person we love, um,
mm,
a health crisis. And
mhm,
my experience and what I've witnessed in other people over the years of working with people is that these moments of crisis
mm,
can sometimes like shake us up just enough
mm,
for the possibility of newness to emerge.
mm,
And that's how it felt for me. I lived, and I don't want to sort of paint a picture as though it was sudden. I would say there was a good 18 months, possibly even 2 years,
okay.
of living in the question
Mm,
and living with the unknown of what I was going to step into, but knowing I couldn't go back, knowing
right.
it was not the right thing for me to stay in my pursuit of sustainability as a singer-songwriter and as a
Mm,
musician. I knew that that wasn't working anymore,
right.
and that had taken me as far as it was going to take me in my life's path. And then there's this like body does a thing in the health crisis, in the reckoning with my own mortality, like all of the paradigm shifting experience that is to be in a health crisis.
Mm,
And then I just, it's like, I don't know, it's not that, but I don't know what it is. And so then I just turned to the practice that had held me
mm,
for so long, which was 5 rhythms.
mm,
And 5 rhythms, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's a movement meditation practice that is fundamentally about moving with what is happening inside of you.
right.
I turned to my practice. It's like, I don't know what the next step is, but I know I need to feel, and I know I need to move my body. I need to
Mm,
be in a process of discovery. And so, creative practices, whether it's something like Five Rhythms and dance or any other artistic form, I believe, and I've
mm,
experienced, can support us in that, right? In that, like opening up to creative potential. And so I'm saying all of this because I think I was laying, it can seem like it was sudden, like there was a sudden call. And in a way,
right.
there was. It happened in a moment on a dance floor where I suddenly had like a fiery clarity about what was,
Mm,
but there was a lot leading up to it. And there was
right.
a lot of context, including my family life as a child,
Mm-hmm.
my parents' acceptance and support of my sister and I to be creative beings in the world,
Yeah.
including my the 10 plus years of Five Rhythms practice that I had already been in, where I was not afraid of change in that moment. And I think that helped me be awake and aware to the signals from my body and from the
Mm,
world about what was next. And then I could hear the call, then my instincts
right.
were tuned. I was ready and awake.
That's amazing. So, like you said, you weren't afraid of change. I think so many people are afraid of change, and that cliche saying, "I don't like it," but it's true. It's like there's one thing that's for sure is that things are always changing. So, for people who don't like change, I mean, things are always changing. And then when they put in the resistance to the change, I think that's when I don't know other things might happen. But for those who don't know, I've done some five rhythm practice with you. Talk about what it is, like what the rhythms are, and because and I'm just seeing a thread through your life, like that is so five rhythms, really, like the flowing of through everything, a little bit of resistance, but a little bit of letting go, all of that. So, do you mind just talking about what five rhythms is?
Sure. Yeah. Five Rhythms is a dynamic movement meditation practice
Right.
that was founded by a woman named Gabrielle Roth
Mhm.
in the early 70s. There was some time of evolution, but she began her movement work with people at the Esalen Institute in the 70s and 80s. And at that time, she was really part of the kind of the forefront of the human potential movement. And there were so many thought leaders and movement leaders and healing leaders gathering at the Esalen Institute at that time in California, Big Sur, including Fritz Perls, who developed Gestalt therapy,
Mm,
Ida Rolf, who developed Rolfing body
right.
technique, and many, many others. And Five Rhythms developed as the way I see it, as a method to remind us in the West of very ancient power and
Mm,
knowledge around the power of music and movement in human cultures and in human society. So indigenous cultures all over the world use music and
hmm.
movement as a way of coming together, of grieving, of celebrating, of meeting rites of passage, of processing life and making art and meaning from life.
Hmm.
And our culture we have forgotten. And so Gabrielle
Mm,
was, at that time noticing in encounter groups and therapeutic settings that sometimes folks would get really stuck in their heads and in story. There'd be this sincere desire to heal and to transform life experience.
mm,
And sometimes in a therapeutic setting that doesn't include the body, we can get stuck.
mhm.
And so she began to work with people through movement to help people get unstuck and remember
Yeah.
their vitality and capacity for creative change and expressiveness. So Five Rhythms really is a reminder. It's a medicinal reminder
Mm,
for us, where those of us who don't have cultural practices that keep music and movement close to us. It's Five Rhythms helps us turn back towards what's inherent in all humans. When you look at a
mm.
toddler who's like just learning to stand up, that you put music on and like they're bouncing, they feel it. Like It's
Yeah.
inherent. Humans and our heartbeats, like music and movement, it's just
Oh,
in us. And somewhere along the way, our culture shuts us down and makes us think we're not supposed to move freely or feel or be
right.
expressive. So Gabrielle developed Five Rhythms and offered it back to the world as this invitation to feel and move freely,
Mm.
and and remember that part of our birthright. So that's the like big picture kind of
Yeah.
lineage. I could speak more about each of the rhythms, but maybe that's enough.
Well, no, we could do that. I just wanted to, it's interesting what you're saying, because I think people are used to a little bit of movement, but I'm just going to compare it to yoga just for a second. And even what you said about toddlers, about, their natural movement, how they just would do a yoga pose, or like bend over and then, or bend forward, or whatever it was, or downward dog is a good one. But I remember, because I used to teach yoga, so people would say, they come to yoga class, feel really good. I don't know why I feel so good. I'm like, well, why do you think you feel so good? And then, kind of challenge people to, oh, how are you taking this yoga practice off the mat, like into your life? And they would look at you like, what are you talking about? So I'm just thinking, like, Five Rhythms is a similar thing. It's like, it's not just a thing that you do. Well, you do it in the moment, but it stays with you. And maybe that's where you can talk about the different rhythms, because I remember when I first started doing it, I loved chaos. Loved chaos. I couldn't wait to get to chaos, because that's where I felt so comfortable, because my life was chaos. And then now practicing it, I had nothing left at the end. Chaos was it for me. And now, and especially the last workshop that we did with you, we'll talk about upcoming workshops. Um, I had so much left at the end in stillness.
Mm.
It was, and it was just amazing. So even how my practice evolved. But yes, maybe now you can talk about the different rhythms, so people can know what they are and how they mirror what's happening in your life.
Yeah, yeah. Much for bringing that part of it, because it's true. We dance Five Rhythms waves.
Mm.
The wave is
Mm-hmm.
each of the rhythms danced in order, and it takes us on this journey of building energy and coming to a peak,
Mm-hmm.
coming back down. And that's not a human construct. That's a natural phenomena of how energy
Mm-hmm.
moves. And so
Mm.
that sort of mirroring of what we do on the dance floor and in studio is a metaphor and a mirror of what is happening inside of us and inside of the natural world all
Mm.
around us. So, Five Rhythms is a physical practice, and it's also a perspective and a philosophy and a lens through which to see the world that can
Mm.
really help open up insight and self-reflection and learning. So, so each of the rhythms, there are five, and we
Mm-hmm.
start in flowing. And flowing movement is, as you would imagine, it's
Mm.
fluid and continuous and spiraling and circular, and orients us towards earth and ground. And
Mm.
they're, different than some other movement practices. We're not following steps with Five
Right.
Rhythms. These are qualities, these are energetics. And so fluid movement is however it arises in your body this particular
Mm-hmm.
moment, knowing it's going to be different in an hour and it's going to be different in your body than in my body. We don't need even to move our whole body, right? People practice Five Rhythms in wheelchairs and
Mm-hmm.
hospital beds. You can practice internally, in fact, with
Mm.
no physical movement at all, just imagining the kind of undulation of soft snake-like movement.
Mm.
That's flowing, and then flowing kind of helps us orient and tune in and warm up. And as our body starts to build some heat, we begin to move in more percussive start and
Mm-hmm.
stop ways. And this is staccato. We call this zone staccato. And this is where the fire starts to ignite and we begin to move with more purpose and direction, kind of cultivating our capacity to have boundaries and clarity and focus. And staccato orients us towards our inner fire, towards that that power, that passion. And yeah. And so as we build energy and fire and clarity and purpose, we begin to build towards that peak. And that's what we call chaos, as you mentioned. And for some people, the word chaos is a challenging word, and it brings up sort of negative connotations of something going wrong. And so what we mean with chaos is actually release or surrender. So there's the unpredictability of moving in ways that are not planned and spontaneous, where there's some kind of letting go, letting the head be soft and be wild and to shake out. And like with all the rhythms, chaos in itself just invites us to let go. So that actually might be very, very gentle. It might be just a little shiver or shake of the hands or a little kind of tremor. It doesn't have to be big and wild and chaotic, although that can feel great also sometimes. And through that process of moving in unpredictable and wild and unplanned ways, we are cultivating our capacity to be with change, to be with spontaneity, to let go of the plan. And we associate the rhythm of chaos with water. Imagine a waterfall. The way water tumbles over a waterfall. That's the sort of quality, the energetic of release that we invite through us. And that releasing, that emptying out, that surrendering naturally takes us across the threshold, that peak, into the zone of lyrical. And we call it lyrical. And what we mean with that is the zone where we are just carried by momentum of the wave. So as a wave in the ocean peaks, there's a moment where it crashes, and then there's effervescence. There's all those bubbles where the momentum of everything moving, you can surf. And that zone of lyrical where we just surf whatever is already surging through us. And sometimes by that time in our movement practice, we are warm enough, we've kind of shucked off enough of the masks or the guards, where we actually can start to experience more freedom and more spaciousness and more lightness and more air. And that's the element that's associated with lyrical. And as lyrical kind of brings us down, as we need to catch our breath, as our movement begins to slow, we start to invite the fifth rhythm, which is called stillness. And as you touched on so beautifully, Lisa, there's, stillness, we think of some sort of static stillness. And in five rhythms, it's still a moving experience. And so when we are cultivating stillness, we're beginning to feel for the spaces, the pauses, the moments where body and being can settle. And where the momentum of all that has been kind of churned up through the wave of the rhythms begins to find its way to shore, to the beach. That
I love that. Yeah.
little slowing and softening, and still very much alive with sensitivity and breath. And the element associated with stillness is ether. So there's this expansiveness where our breath and what's inside of us, the expansiveness inside of us, reaches through us, and we're a part of a bigger expanse. We're a part of spaciousness that includes everything that we're feeling and what's all around us and beyond out to the cosmos.
Right. Oh,
that's our wave.
What a beautiful, I could just listen to you speak forever. So it's interesting because as you were explaining that, I remember back to my first workshop. It's like we do all of that, and it takes about an hour and a half, would you say, if someone wanted to put a timeline on it? And then what's the amazing thing is, and then you do it again. And I remember thinking, how am I going to do that again? But then you start moving. Oh, it's just the beautiful way of, like you said, each rhythm is different in your body each time. And it's a practice. So what a beautiful, beautiful practice. So I know that you teach in Toronto. That's where you kind of have your regular Heart Space Productions. Is that right? Or is that to do with your music?
Yeah, Heart
That
Space Productions is the production company where I
okay.
produce events and workshops and classes.
Okay.
I'm based in
Right.
Toronto, and my regular classes are here. And
Okay.
then I also bring in visiting teachers from all over the
Mm-hmm.
place to Toronto to offer special
Right.
workshops, and then I travel myself to teach workshops.
Yes. Well, that's how I met you.
Yeah,
You traveled here. Um, my goodness, I'm going to forget the year. It was about
15, I think.
2015. Okay. When you did a workshop, Natalie Brewer brought you here.
Yeah.
And that was just life changing for, I know, for those of us who were at that workshop. Were Tess and Natalie too. Tess Madigan, and now they're producers of Five Rhythms. So they've brought you here a couple times for more workshops. Most recently, oh my goodness, was it October or November?
You
Sorry,
know,
November.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. And so you're coming again. Do you want to tell us when you're coming
Sure.
back to Fredericton?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm coming at the end of May, so I think
Mm,
from May 30th to June the 1st. And yeah, I'm really excited about this upcoming program. It's a workshop called Sacred Earth, Sacred Body, and it's five
mm,
waves level material.
right.
And this particular theme invites us to come into connection with ourselves,
Mm,
each other, and with community, and also with the more than human community. As I like
mm. Okay.
our place kind of in the dance of life, and God willing, the weather will cooperate with us. I like to teach one of the sessions
Ah,
of this workshop.
outside?
Yeah,
Ah, oh, that will be amazing. It should be good by then.
I,
Usually, I hope so.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's open to
oh,
anybody. You don't need previous experience.
right,
We'll lay some good foundational work on the Friday night, and we'll have
right,
some Friday only spots available as well. And
right.
the opportunity for practice through a whole weekend is so rich and wonderful. In that, dancing one wave can be very powerful and certainly
Mm,
reconnect us. And having the opportunity to be with a group for an extended
mm,
period of time and build trust with
mm-hmm,
and dance many waves it's a cumulative effect where we have
mm-hmm,
the opportunity to really become more and more at ease in our own skin,
mm.
and more connected and alive, vibrant, vital.
Yeah, beautiful. And thank you so much for bringing Five Rhythms, well, and also to Natalie and Tess to this part of the world because it really built a community here. I remember that first workshop, I think there were 8 of us. And
Yes.
now the last one, there were well over 40. So, and then there's a community in Halifax as well, and then another one in Moncton with Carolyn. Oh my gosh, her last name is escaping me at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
lots of opportunity for dancing, and it's wonderful to see it sort of explode and grow and
It is. It's so exciting, and I feel like it really is testament to the need. Like we
I
need places to come together
you're
and
so right.
be able
Yeah.
to be ourselves and to practice being with
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and each other, and being with difference and being real together. So
Yeah.
I think it's testament to people's desire.
People are desire and opening up and it's such a grounding experience too. It's like, and not to compare it to yoga, but I talked about taking it off the mat. I find this practice, you just take it once you leave like the room or the building or wherever we were, it sort of comes, it follows you, it stays in your body. It's really beautiful. So thank you, Leah,
Pleasure.
for talking to me today. What a wonderful conversation. And is there anything else you'd like to say that maybe we didn't cover?
Mm.
Um, I think people know how to find you. We can look you up online and for the workshop here again. Oh, there's There's a virtual class coming up, is there not, on the 23rd of February?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Carolina.
that's with Carolyn. Yes.
Yeah, she's organizing a an online class. So folks will be gathering in studio in Moncton, and then
Right.
be beaming in and leading a Five Rhythms class. And then I believe there'll be a potluck to follow. So yeah, a
Okay.
little sort of taster, an opportunity to be with a group and to
Right.
taste Five Rhythms a little bit. And then yeah, and then the longer opportunity for practice at the end of May.
At the end of May.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, the only thing that comes to me that I would love to add
Mm.
is, just around your questions around like calling and like
Mm-hmm.
leading a soulful life.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Five Rhythms is one way to reconnect with creativity and with, personal agency and with, the kind of innate healing capacity in each of us. And there are so many ways. And, I would just encourage all of us to continue to turn towards the practices that can reconnect us
Mm-hmm.
to our bodies and to our hearts and to our creative capacity. And that's really, as I see it, that is really what's needed at this time on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
for us all to know how to resource ourselves so we can continue to show up for community
Mm-hmm.
in service of society that is stronger and more loving and more kind. Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to, yeah, describe all of that, and more grounding too, I think. People are, you can kind of almost tell, I think, sometimes when someone isn't really grounded, like just sort of they're not really connected. Yeah, I don't know what I was going to say there, but and not to judge anyone either, but it's just nice. It's such a grounding experience with Five Rhythms. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you, Lee.
talking to me today. I love this conversation. So we're gonna end it here. Again, thank you, Layah, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Just hang on there for a second as I end this. Thanks again, Layah.